Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Arrow episode review right here on Otaku Assemble. Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Arrow episode review, and this is my review of Season 1, Episode 18, entitled Salvation. Now, general thoughts on this week's episode. I thought it was a pretty intriguing and pretty suspenseful episode, and that's mainly due to the fact of the antagonist in this week's episode and the manner in which Oliver and his team had to deal with said antagonist. I thought was really well. I think they did a really good job with setting up this sort of mystery. This manhunt, this sort of, where's Waldo, if you will. It's one of the few times, actually it's been a while, that we've seen Oliver deal with someone that he could not get his hands on. I mean, throughout the majority of the season, it's always someone that either Oliver is aware of or someone that he's able to at least track their movements to where he can have some type of confrontation. That's usually how Oliver's exploits have worked up to this point, usually. And I don't think we've had really too many adversaries that Oliver couldn't literally track down. That's only happened a couple of times. And so not only was it someone that Oliver, number one, didn't know of, number two, couldn't find, but then number three, always stayed out of his reach. As we saw when we had that, that tense moment when Oliver was trying to find the guy's location and then the guy kept moving. That was really tense. I thought they did a real good job kind of building that up. So I thought that was intriguing. I also found it intriguing that while the preview suggested that we might be dealing with a copycat character, it wasn't done in the manner in which one might expect, because they really have yet to do a fanatic episode, meaning that someone who becomes obsessed with the Hood's image and persona and then wants to emulate that, so starts doing what Oliver's doing but doesn't show the same type of restraint. We haven't really seen that yet. So unless my memory is just completely going blank, we haven't seen that. We've seen people operate in a similar manner as Oliver, that being, Deadshot was just a hitman, but, he had some of the same targets that Oliver had. The Dark Archer, but we all know about that. And then Huntress, but she was more of just an avenger, and real, very specific and cutthroat about what she was doing, not really along the same line of what Oliver's trying to accomplish. So the thing is, we haven't gotten the whole fanatical copycat thing yet. And I was thinking that's what we were getting in this week's episode, and it turns out not necessarily. Yes, he is a vigilante in the sense that he's taking matters into his own hands, but it is like Huntress, based off of revenge. He's finding people that he views are responsible for the murder of his wife, so he's exacting vengeance on her behalf. So kind of the same thing, but done in a different way. I also like how, to add to the tension of the manhunt going on, that this was someone who was televised, who was broadcasting all of his executions, and so that just added to that just built up more suspense and more tension, because not only could Oliver not find him, but he's seeing everything the guy's doing and can't do anything about it. So I thought all of that taken into consideration, that was just really, really good. I liked how Roy got in the mix. And I like how pretty much Roy's first encounter with the hood was based upon him needing to be saved, rather than something like, oh, him stumbling across Oliver, or him accidentally finding out Oliver's identity and then being brought into the fold like that. So I already like what they're doing with Roy in trying to get him to, trying to bring him into the fold, as far as what's going on with the main characters, his affiliation with the hood, his first experience with him, that type of thing. I like how they're setting that up. But I will make this comment because I was right about this. Remember in last week's review when I said that I felt like the kiss between Thea and Roy was completely shoehorned, and the only reason why that scene was there was to get us to their relationship quicker? First scene with them in this week's episode, look, you would have thought they've been dating for weeks, wouldn't you? You see what I'm saying? And that's why I said that, because what I'm saying is, I'm finding it pretty hard to swallow that, oh, one kiss and all of a sudden these two are just all over each other in this episode. And that's why I said that scene was only there to jump us to this point in their relationship. That was the only reason why it was there. And turns out I was right about that. So, but I do like what they're doing with Roy. I do like it. Let's talk about the Lances. I do want to mention what happened with Laurel and her parents. I expected that the whole Sarah might be alive angle would fall flat, and when it happened in this episode, I wasn't really sure what to think, because it's like, well, why would you even, bring Laurel's mom back? Why would you even bring all this stuff back up if it wasn't going to lead anywhere? And the thing is, I'm starting to think that it has less to do with the possibility that Sarah might still be alive and more to do with them wrapping up the mystery behind Laurel's mom. Because remember, prior to her mother's reappearance, all we knew was that she left not too long after the accident. After Sarah died, she left not too long after. Her marriage with Quentin was strained, and Laurel had somewhat of abandonment issues because her mom did leave. So that's why I'm thinking her mother's reappearance and this whole thing going back into trying to find Sarah and whatnot, I think it has less to do with Sarah and more about them wrapping that part of Laurel's backstory up, presenting that catharsis. So now that Laurel's over the problems that she had with her mom, now she can move forward. I think that's what it had more to do with. And I actually think that's a pretty good thing, because now we won't have that in the background for the rest of the series. That has been brought to us and wrapped up within 2 episodes, all in the first season. So now they can go ahead and take Laurel past this point. I think it also does the same with Quentin, because now that he was able to put the whole thing with Sarah to bed, and then having to deal with it again, and now knowing for certain that the first potential lead that he had in years led to a dead end. So I think now even Quentin can move forward, because it's like, okay, I've been thorough, I've left no stone unturned, and now I can move on, because I don't see how there could be any evidence that would suggest that Sarah could still be alive. So also, man, we learned another reason why Laurel's mom might have left, and that's because she actually blames herself for Sarah's murder, because she had an opportunity to stop Sarah, and she felt that even though she tried, it wasn't good enough. And then, Sarah, went on the trip and then, of course, died. So she actually blames herself for that. And I also thought it was interesting because Quentin blamed himself for her too. So now, Quentin and Dinah, Laura's mom, now they kind of have their grief is actually mutual. It's a lot more mutual than they might have thought. Which I thought was also well done. I like how they did that. Oh, I do also want to add the line Laurel's mom says when she was talking about, I got a flight back to Central City, and she was like, I should be home in a flash. Yeah, I caught that. I was like, I see what they did there. Which makes me wonder, because this is like the third or fourth time they've mentioned Central City in this series. So I wonder, could we? Maybe. Nah, I'm not gonna hold my breath on that, but it'll be awesome if it does happen. Anywho, let me see. Flashback was pretty cool. I actually liked how the whole thing with Yao Fei and his daughter, that kind of, I'm not saying it's necessarily resolved, but that kind of came to a head a lot sooner than I expected. Because I figured that would have been something that like might have been one of the little mysteries that they decided to keep in the dark for the most part. And to be honest, I didn't think that we would go. I didn't even think that we would see Yao Fei again until maybe towards the end of the season, just because they had already gotten to the point where they wanted to develop the whole thing where it's like, yeah, Yao Fei, he's working for what's his face. He's still working for the bad guys, but he has a good reason, and maybe over time Oliver and Slade will find out about it, and then they'll try to help him and try to bring him over, but he'll refuse because he thinks his way better. That whole thing. I thought they were going to drag it out longer, and they didn't. So I thought that was actually a pretty good thing, because now it opens up. Now we have a third member of Oliver's party on the island, working with them, Yao Fei's daughter. And I think that opens the door for a lot of interesting possibilities, because of course we found out that they lost the circuit board, and then we know that Yao Fei isn't with them. So yeah, it kind of shakes things up a bit on the island. So be interested to see exactly where they're going with this, with this conflict, and I'm curious, like, is this conflict really going to be stretched out across those 5 years that Oliver was there, or is this just something immediate that Oliver's having to deal with, or is this just going to lead to something else that might potentially happen on the island later on? All these things, it opens it up to a lot of speculation. Oh, and I also like the fact that, this was the episode where Felicity finally kind of cracked, she kind of got shaken up a bit, which was good, because, because Felicity's character is not the type where she can just be, cold and calculating about this thing. At some point, she was going to, crack. She was going to get shaken up by, by what it is that she's actually doing. And when she was a target in both Dodger and in The Hunter's Returns, I felt like that, like in both those situations, she was just pretty much kind of like the damsel in distress. And I always thought that wasn't strong enough to really like get into her head to like, oh my God, what is it that I'm really doing type thing. But they did it really well in this episode. So yeah, so like I said, pretty much wrapping up this review. Thought it was a good episode. Not amongst the best, but there was enough in this episode to definitely keep me intrigued, to build tension, to build suspense. Oh, especially the thing with Moira, and especially all that was going on. Her and her partner. Well, her partner was found out. I don't know if Tommy's dad suspects Moira. It's suggested that he doesn't, but I don't think he's that stupid or naive to not suspect her. So all of this is just building tension and building suspense, and it's all it's all going to boil over, because I think there's only This is episode 18. I think there's only 21 episodes, right? So we got 3 more episodes left until the finale, I think. Yeah, so I'll definitely be interested to see how this whole thing, how this season wraps up, man. It's pretty good. So that's going to do it for this week's Arrow review. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this week's episode, as well as just pretty much where do you think how do you think all of this is going to conclude at the end of this season? You know, what do you think is actually going to be wrapped up by season's end? What do you think is actually going to carry over until next season? And what can you expect later on this week? Later this week, I am doing my Game of Thrones Season 3 expectations video. Finally, stop bugging me about it. I'm doing this week's OAW podcast will actually be discussing Game of Thrones Season 3. So I'm doing a Game of Thrones podcast. And then Sunday night, when will be my Game of Thrones Season 3 Episode 1 review. And then, due to History Channel not releasing this week's Viking episode ahead of time, Monday night, my Vikings episode review will be up. So, with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.